Greetings, my little cousins. We're doing some baking. I haven't done a little bit of baking for a while. Might not seem like that to you because of the order in which I put things out, but it's been a little while since I've done some baking. And I'm going to make a bundt cake. So I've got a bundt tin. So I've actually got two, but my other more elaborate one is a bit too small for what we're going to make. So this is a fairly plain one, okay? But the crucial thing with a bundt tin, it's got to be properly greased, if you like, and prepared, otherwise your cake sticks in it. This isn't too bad. The more elaborate ones, if you don't get it right, when it comes out, it'll break up. So what I'm going to do first off, and a little top tip for you, if you've got a non-stick one, melting your butter or trying to use oil doesn't help, doesn't work, because it will run off this coating. So you need softened butter, and what we're going to do is we're going to make sure we've coated every single surface in there, including that central pipe, if you like. And then when I've done that, I'm going to give it a dusting with flour. So what we're going to make is a spiced ginger bundt cake, courtesy of Cupcake Gemma. So I'm just going to get this all nice and buttery, make a mess of my hands. So I've thoroughly greased that, and what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to add some flour, and I'm just going to, now I've got quite a generous amount of flour in there, I'm just going to make sure that flour goes all over. So it looks like I've missed a buttery bit there, because the flour's not sticking. You might have to get a bit of butter on there. And I'm then going, once I've got all of it nicely buttered and floured, like I say, I've just got that little bit there I've got to do. I'm going to turn that upside down and on the side, knock all the excess flour out, and then we'll put that by, ready to cook. Now I've put my oven on. You want your oven on at 170 Celsius, that is, fan oven. Okay, so I'm just going to get this finished off, and then we'll start assembling everything. So into my stand mixer, because we need to cream some butter and sugar together. You don't do that by hand, it takes too bloody long. So what I've got in here is I've already got some softened unsalted butter. I've got 250 grams of that, and into that I'm going to put some nice light brown sugar, 220 grams of that, and then we're going to now get in there, put that on to about a medium speed, and we're just going to then beat that together until it goes nice and pale. Be about 5 minutes. Okay, so in the meantime, we get the rest of the ingredients. Now this is going to be a very gingery cake, and we're going to make like a caramel sauce to go on top of it. Okay, so you need to get your bundt tin ready, you need to get your oven up to 170, and you need to get cream in. Right, so that's nicely creamed together. So here in a bowl, I'm going to make the dry ingredients, which we will be adding later. Okay, so in here I've got some plain flour. I've got 470 grams of plain flour. I'm going to add in half a teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of baking powder, a teaspoon of bicarb, 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. Then I've got two very generous tablespoons of ground ginger, but that's not enough, because what I've got in here is 45 grams of freshly ground fresh ginger. So just going to put all that in to there, and then I'm just going to mix that roughly together, but remember, of course, it's all going in there eventually anyway. Now the next thing that we're going to need to mix together is some, well, I'm using golden syrup. Okay, I've got much of that have I got? 345 grams golden syrup, You can use dark corn syrup if that suits your fancy, or you can even use honey. So we've got golden syrup, and into that I'm going to crack 1 egg, and I'm now going to attempt to whisk that egg and syrup together. Okay, so once I've done that, we're going to go back to our stand mixer, and we're then going to add this mixture to that in there. So it's going to be very sweet, isn't it? Okay, I'm using quite a stiff whisk, although once you've actually started getting that going, that's not so bad. And I think there's a little bit of shower in there, so I'm going to whisk that out, get this all thoroughly mixed, and then we'll start blending them too. So I'm going to put the mixer onto fairly slow speed to start with, and what we're going to do is start adding in that syrup slowly, getting it to start blending in together. And then, like I say, when we've got our dry ingredients, they'll be all ready to add in a bit. So, going to get that all blended together. So, I've got my flour mix. I've also got here some buttermilk. Now, this is actual buttermilk. In the past, I haven't been able to get hold of it, and I've followed Cupcake Gemma's recipe for making it. It's quite easy. Okay, you'll see it on her site, or you see it on some of the other recipes I've done. And we've got here 250 mils of buttermilk. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by adding about 1/3 of our flour mix, probably a bit more than 1/3, and I'm going to add some of that buttermilk, and we're going to then mix that in, and then we're going to continue like that. So I've got all the flour mix and all the buttermilk in there. So, so my oven's up to 170. The bundt tin's nicely greased and floured. I've given this a scrape down a couple of times, and now we're just going to add that mixture to the tin. Okay, I'm just going to distribute it all the way around, and then we're going to smooth the top off. Now, you don't want to fill the tin more than 3/4 full. Okay, you want a little bit of room for it to rise. We don't want it overflowing. So I'm going to get that tin all emptied out into there, and then we're just going to smooth it off. Filled my tin as such. I've given it a bit of smooth, but before putting it on, particularly, it's not quite crucial with this one, but with the more intricate ones, it's not a bad idea to give it a good banging, and that'll help it settle down into all them little nooks and crannies. So that's now ready. That's going to go into the oven. I'm just going to clean that top off because it will only catch. That's going to go into the oven for about 45 to 50 minutes. Obviously we want to make sure that when we put a skewer in, it comes out nice and clean. Okay, so we get that baking, have a little bit of a clean up, and then we'll start making the caramel sauce. Right, so to make the caramel sauce, I've got a largish saucepan, and I've got some caster sugar. I've got 220 grams of caster sugar, and I've got 120 mils of water. Now I'm just going to give them a bit of a mix together, and then we're going to put them onto heat, and we're just going to warm it up, and we want it to go like a nice dark amber colour. Now it's important during that you don't stir it, because if you do, it's going to all start crystallising, which we don't want. So I'm just giving it an initial mix in case there's any lumps of sugar, and then I'm going to put that on the heat, about medium heat, and we're just going to then, like I say, cook that through to its dark amber. Now the only other bits you're going to want is some double cream, or you Americans call it heavy cream. I've got 245 grams of that, and I'm going to add to that cream 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Okay, so that will be adding in once we've got our caramel. So I'm just going to get this caramelising. So at this point it's now just starting to go a nice, like we say, dark amber colour. So we'll take it off the heat, and what we do now is we take our double cream with the vanilla extract and slowly, and be careful because this will be we're slowly, and it will foam up. This is why you need a big saucepan. Okay, you can hear that, a lot of steam, so mind yourself. And so we're just going to gradually add that in, stirring that in as we go, and then we'll put it by just to cool further until we're ready to use it. Now it may be that when we come to add it to the cake, you might decide, I'm dripping it on the oven, you might decide that you don't want to smother the whole thing in it, in which case you keep some of this back, and when later you come to serve portions of the cake, you can drizzle some more of the caramel sauce on. So that is our caramel sauce. Just going to get that final bit mixed in, and then, like I say, we're just going to put that to one side until it's cooled sufficiently. Don't try tasting it right now. Okay, until it's cooled sufficiently, and then we'll drizzle it on a cake, which got a little bit longer to go, but almost there. Right, I've taken the cake out, I've tried it to skewer, it had 50 minutes in the end. You can see how much it's risen. Now, what we're going to do, I've set the timer on for another 10 minutes. Because what we're going to do is I'm just going to transfer this over to the wire rack like that. We don't attempt to tip it out at this point. We're going to give it a minimum of 10 minutes, definitely no more than 15. As it cools, it will shrink a little bit. If we leave it too long, the sugars in it will start sticking it to the side of the container, the tin. So we don't want it to cool too much, but on the other hand, if we try and tip it out at this stage, it's still quite fragile. So we give it 10 minutes, and then we're going to hopefully tip it out. Right, so that's just over 10 minutes. So I'm going to put that serving plate on there. It's obviously still very hot. Okay, so this is where about movement then. Out the way. Let's have a go. Lovely's trying to pick the bugger up. And there we go. Perfect. Okay, all the way around. So now while it's still warm, I'm going to take that caramel sauce. I'm just going to drizzle this around it. Like I say, you can, if you want, just keep some of this back and use it as an additional sauce. I'm pretty much going to use most of it, I think. Give it all just a bit of a coating on top, and then there we have our spiced ginger bundt cake, courtesy of Cupcake Jammer, or her recipe anyway. I'm going to let that cool a little bit, and then we're going to taste it. And I can tell you from licking the pan out, it's gingery, and I love ginger. Don't like ginger, don't bake this bloody thing, you won't like it. And it's got to that time, so ginger and beer. Cheers. Well, I'll show you when I eat it, or a bit of it. things I have to do for this cooking. Here we go, so I've cut a slice, still a bit warm. That is nice. Right. That's one of the nicest cakes I've made. I love ginger. This is like a nice, if you've had one of them sort of sticky Jamaican ginger cakes that you buy, you're getting the caramel, but basically the ginger just hits through that. This is lush. I've only had a thin bit. It's loaded now. Seriously, don't think I'm taking this to work. Sorry, folks. Well, a little bit. Spiced ginger bun coat. Perfect.